Hello, Cat Citizen here. Do you enjoy watching buff men punch each other? No? Now let's talk about fights. Fights are the physical manifestation of rivaling ideas. This is where two definitions exist. There's engaging in an argument, and then there's to attempt to harm or gain power over an adversary by blows or by weapons. And as you can probably imagine, I'm only going to be discussing the second category. I would love to get into political debates, but I don't think I have the guts to talk about Chilean politics for them 5 seconds. Let's jump into this. In a story, a fight fits many roles. Some include characterization and developing the plot. Since a single fight can help do all these things, how can we boil down something so overreaching into simple principles? According to the law, I can't. Well, you see, it's because we have bad examples that exist from which we can learn from. And okay, before I get into any principles, I need to explain that a lot of these depend on things that happen before the fights. Meaning, the fight could be great at the moment if we ignore any prior build-up of the series, but this should not be an excuse for a bad fight scene, because unless you watch it on YouTube by itself, you're never going to enjoy a fight scene in a vacuum. Now to the principles. When writing a fight scene, your first consideration should be, why are the characters fighting? This is what we call stakes. It's an amalgamation of character motivations, backstories, and the current threats that are being presented to the audience. We need to know what's at risk in the fight, be it personal and or physical. In the physical side, we have the classic stake, which would be the world ending, and a good story uses that stake to create interpersonal conflict for the protagonist. That is all friends and family dying, their home getting destroyed, etc. And shows them not only understanding and internalizing this beforehand, but also characters act like the stakes are high. This is why having characters be joking should not be advised if you want the reader to take in those stakes. The protagonist whose world is at stake doesn't care. Well, why should we? More personal stakes are things like wanting revenge, or trying to prove something to someone or themselves. And a bad personal stake usually is related to a character lacking character, or having no connection to the enemy. Even if there's no connection to the enemy, there can still be internal conflicts between them. For example, what if the abilities they're using aren't obtained through moral means? What if their motives are put into question by this character they've never met before, as they come in with a brand new perspective? Even without knowing the character they're fighting, there should still be good personal stakes. If these characters are action figures fighting because one is evil and one is good, and we get no explanation further than that, it makes it very boring. No matter how visually impressive, which I'll give it to it, the visuals and choreography can work a lot for this, but in a purely narrative sense, if it's just action figures, really have no reason to care. I mean, you can show me like Fate Zero type visuals, you can show me like the ending of Gurren Laggan, but what makes the best fights in both those series is the fact that there's personal stakes. A good writer might create parallels between the protagonist and the antagonist, and this could be a factor into the personal stakes. Examples would be characters that have similar origins, but along the path end up choosing to change and end up where they are now. Take Tai Lung and Po as a simple example. They're both being molded into the Dragon Warrior by Shifu, but along the path, Po made Shifu realize he was doing it wrong by trying to mold him, instead he should be trying to bring out the best out of him. And that's why Po wins in the end. Not by being stronger, but by doing what he does best and beating the expert at martial arts, Tai Lung. The parallel mostly comes from the interactions when Tai Lung talks to Shifu, where he describes what he not only did to him, but what he tried to do to Po at the start. That being to put his expectations and project them onto both of them, where the Dragon Warrior is expected, that with the latter, he became conscious of his error, which is what made the difference. Let me give you a scenario. A man stops a train with one arm. From then forward, anyone who is stronger than him would have the ability to stop a train one-handed. Later, you couldn't have a scene of a runaway train with a stronger character due to the information we have been given. In a scenario like this, you, the writer, could break or damage the stronger character's arm to maintain the logic you have previously established. As in, the reason why the runaway train can't be stopped by this man stopping of his bare arms is because his arms are damaged, instead of just letting the inconsistency go where this man is stronger than a man who stopped the train. This is the base for the second principle, consistency and skills. We need to know previously what toolkit our protagonist is going into the fight with. If a story has a guy who can run faster than a gunshot, you gotta keep it consistent and not just make him fight a guy with a gun. You make antagonists who counters the protagonist's ability. Note, the villains do not need to have their moveset designed fully before the fight, especially not be revealed to the audience right away and everything they can do, but we do need a basic gist of what it is, or else you get what people call an ass pull. Also, make sure if you're going to make a character have the same abilities and strengths, don't make the answer be just getting stronger, getting faster, like fucking shooting lasers more powerfully than them, making more energy balls that are stronger than them. You have to make them recognize their own flaws and work to attack those flaws on the other person, or have them use their terrain to get the upper hand. Not that it had anything to do with my previous rant, just to say it somewhere, because I'm so tired of that trope. It's everywhere. I literally mean everywhere. Moving on to the one most writers are already familiar with, setting. And unlike the usual type of setting that exists in a story, that being a whole bunch of versions of world building, this is more of a in the moment. First thing regarding the setting of a fight should always be, unless you establish a reason as to why it isn't, constantly changing and or adapting to the fight and to the setting. Put two characters in a playground, have them use the play structures to try to get an upper hand. In a jungle, using vines, trees, and general wildlife to get traps, distractions, or use them as a means of movement. In a space station, using the lack of oxygen, I'm gonna assume they're gonna be dead if they're in the lack of oxygen. Using the lack of gravity to try to disorientate your enemy, while utilizing 100% pure oxygen to create a bomb. Of course, the way characters enter these situations is purely up to the writer, and they should have a pretty clear image of the scene and everything that could be used in it. The setting and variations of set setting forged on the character's abilities are literally only limited by your creativity. So please just stop using the setting as a backdrop and have the settings be an important ever-changing aspect of a fight. Man, I don't want to say this, but one show I think nails the concept of setting through a fight is JoJo's Bizarre Adventure. Hear me out. Multiple fights will start in a certain situation, let's say in a taxi changing someone swinging through Egypt like Spider-Man, and one in a completely different situation, stopping time on a bridge to drop construction equipment on someone. Because the way the characters ended up in the current position just seems logical, from what you've seen before. Even if the means is so bizarre it lacks any sense in our world, it creates a suspension of belief that it works inside its own universe, that it just feels like, yeah, obviously it went from chasing this Spider-Man wannabe dumbass to dropping construction equipment on a Japanese high schooler. Alright, that's enough sucking JoJo off. Low personal stakes usually leave a greater impact on the audience, and is what I would usually advise to do when beginning as a writer to learn what works and what doesn't in character writing, and to create engaging dynamics between characters. A show that does stakes like that very well would be Saiyan Saga, a show about Vikings, British people, and war. It is a very brutal show per se, but the way that you can tell how characters feel toward one another just by the way they fight is fantastic. And almost every fight relies on characters' own personal motivations, meaning that failure isn't a character ender, it's a character builder to help them move in their arc forward. Now, a show that keeps its skill consistent, it would be Dragon. I'm sorry, I couldn't finish that sentence. One Punch Man is a comedy action show about this guy called Baldy McJones who wins every fight in just one punch. The consistency of this show is that there's no one stronger than Baldy Bolthead. There are no issues of power scaling, making feats irrelevant because everything one person can do, Saitama can outperform and show off. The series knows there's no feasible way for conflict to end poorly when Saitama's around, so instead it derives some comedy out of the character's preconceived stakes and the perceptions of dangers being completely flipped on their head with just a single punch from one baldy bad bald head. Stinky motherfucker. The fact the show tells us that compared to the protagonist, everyone's equally as weak, means that the stakes for every fight gets twisted from being who is stronger, continue to, man, I can't wait for this guy to get destroyed. At least I hope you at least take the 3 principles into consideration, so that whenever you're watching an anime or any other action scene, and think to yourself, what would the little stupid man on my screen think?